Hey there, CS360 students. So in this recording, we're going to go through how to add in some additional functionality to our band database where we can add a band to the database. So you can see I've added a floating action button here. Or if we choose a band, you can see that I've added the ability to edit and delete this particular entry. So again, these will be ideas that you're going to want to use in your term project. So let's take a look at what we have updated in here. So I'm continuing with the last lecture where we hooked up the recycler view. So first thing we're going to look at is I've updated fragment list .xml. And so for fragment list.xml, you can see that it is using a relative layout. I think this was already on there. It is using the recycler view. Again, we added this last time. And then you can see that I have added a floating action button. So I'm pretty sure this exact same XML description is in our zyBooks. I just went and copied and pasted it, and I probably changed a couple things there. Next thing is that there is an IC underscore add. So I've added that XML as well. So you can see that is in here as well. So we do have our plus button. So the fragment list, so as we, let me get this up here and running again. So as you can see, we have our recycler view, and then it has added the floating action button to this fragment list right here. Okay, the next one that's been updated is fragment details. So again, if I choose a band, you can see that I still have the band name, I still have the description. So there's the name of the band, there's the description, and then I've added in an edit and a delete button. Typically, again, I usually use some kind of prefix to identify things. So this is btn edit, and then this is btn delete. All right, so next thing that we're going to go take a look at is the band.java class. So first thing in here is there's one method in here that I really want to get rid of, and that is this method right here. So set ID. I want you to delete this. The ID is a unique identifier, and it should only be set in a constructor. So setting this ID right here, delete this. You might want to make sure you don't have any references to something like this. So find usages, and I can see that there are nothing found in the project file. So I am able to safely delete this. So I'm going to delete that set ID because we do not want the ability to change the ID on the fly. So what we're going to do is we need to add several constructors to our band class. So first one I've added is a constructor that takes in the ID, the name, and the description, and it sets those fields right here. I have a constructor that takes in just a name and a description, and so you can see that I set the name and description as they come in, and then I set the ID to -1. Technically, what I really should do is just this. I can call the other constructor up here, passing it -1, name, and description. So I can clean up my code a little bit and remove those lines. So when I use this constructor, it's going to pass those values to this constructor right here. Then down here, this is a copy constructor for a band with maintaining the ID. So again, the idea here is I could actually just call the base constructor here, and I can pass it the ID. I can say band name, band dot description, and I can reduce down those 3 lines of code to this single line. So again, the idea with these different constructors is depending on where I'm creating something, what information I might have. So if I am in my database, I'm going to know the ID, the name, and the description because I'm going to be getting that from my database values. But here, for name and description, this is when I'm going to be creating one myself. So I only know the name and description when I create the band, and I'm going to let the database handle creating the ID number. And then this is a copy constructor where I want to maintain the ID of the band, but I'm going to change potentially its name and description. And then the last one, this is a copy constructor. Looks like I am not even referencing this, but eventually I will. And what this is doing, it is copying all of the fields one by one. And again, I can do this. I can say, give me the ID, give me the name, and give me the description. So we can call the kind of base constructor that way. Okay, next thing that we have here is we do want to implement an equals and hash code method because later on you're going to see where we are using the index of for finding a band in the list. And that only works properly if we have an equals method that is implemented. So to do that, we can go to code, generate. I can choose the equals and hash code right here, and I just follow the default values there. So what this is going to do is it's going to take and compare an object against this particular band. And so if they have the same reference, then they are the same thing. So that's going to return true. If the object comes in as null or it's not a band object, so it's going to be false or not the same thing. Otherwise, we know it's the same type, so we can cast it to a band, and then we're going to check, is the ID the same? Is the name of the band the same? Is the description of the band the same? And if that's the case, then these are the exact same object. Okay, so we've got our band updated. Next thing we're going to do is go into the band database class. And a couple things in here. So first off, I want to point out to you that we are going to have a bug in here. So this is a bug. You'll see why in a little bit. Also this right here, this is a bug. So again, we'll see those in action here in a little bit. We'll fix those when we come back here. I have added some methods to our band database. So we want the ability to add a band. So what we're going to do is provide a method. I'm going to make it public. I'm going to return an integer. This is going to represent the new ID of the band. And so we've got a method called add band, and we are adding a band object. I'm going to default the band ID to be -1 to start with. So this is my signifier that this is a non-valid band ID. And I'm going to have a Boolean that gets returned, so I'm going to set it to false to start with. You can see that it's, excuse me, this is not what I'm returning. I'm returning the band ID, but I'm going to use a Boolean to know whether or not I have an existing band. So we're going to loop through the bands that we have already. So we have this list of bands, right here it is. It's a list of bands. And so I'm going to loop through that list of bands, and I'm going to check if the name is a match. So if the name of the band in the list is a match to the band that came in, then that band already exists. I'm going to set that equal to true, and then I can break out of this loop. If I go through this entire list and I don't set it equal to true, then that means the band does not exist. It's a new name for a band. So that's great. If it doesn't exist, we're going to add it to the list. And then for right now, what I'm doing is I'm setting the band ID equal to the size of the bands. But I don't like that. So let's do this. Let's create in here, so a private static int next band ID, and there it is. And let's see if I can get away with this. So in my constructor right here, when we create this list, I should be able to go next band ID is going to equal the bands dot length. So when this started up, we're going to have 3 bands in here. So the ID would have been, let's see here, so 1, then 2, then 3. Those are going with just the default. So I'm going to have the size of whatever this is. And so I want to actually do this plus 1. So my next band ID is going to be the next one plus 1. So now what I'm going to do down here is instead of setting the band ID equal to bands.size, I'm going to make it, let's do this. We're going to say band, new band equals new band, and I'm going to give it the next band ID and the band details that came in. And then I'm going to add this one to my list. And then next band ID, we're going to increment for the next one that comes through. So that should be good. And then I can do this. I set band ID. I want to do this. Band ID equals next band ID. And we're going to set that. And I'm going to increment it, and then I'm going to return what the band's ID is. So this should be all good right here. Okay, next thing we're going to do is create an edit method. So I want to be able to edit a band. So I'm going to provide it the original ID of the band, and then this is going to contain the new details of the band. So it sure would be nice if there was some documentation telling us that. So let's go ahead and just put some documentation specifying that's what we have here. So edit an existing band, return. So parameters, the ID, this is the ID of an existing band. And the updated band details is what we're passing in as this parameter here. And then this returns true is updated, false, error occurred. So the idea with this one is I'm going to have that Boolean is edited. I'm going to start it out as false. You can see that that's getting returned here at the end. And then what I want to do is I'm going to loop through the bands that we have, and I'm going to compare the ID. So I'm going to check the ID of the band in the list with the ID that came in. So if they're the same, then I'm going to change the name of the band. I'm going to change the description based on what came in right here. And so then we're going to have an is edited. We edited it, so we're going to set that to true, and we'll break out of this loop. We're also going to have a delete band method. So what we'll do is we'll provide it the ID of an existing band. So again, we should probably put some Javadoc in here. So delete a band, and this is the ID of an existing band. We're going to return a Boolean, so true is deleted, false is an error. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to have an index for where the band is in the list. I'm going to start it out as -1 because I know that's not a valid index. And I'm going to loop through my bands. I'm going to check their ID against the ID that was passed in. And if I have a match, then I've got the index of that band. And actually, I need to change up this right here. Hang tight. I don't want to do that because I changed up the ID. I need to do this. I need to accumulate my index. So I'm going to do this. I need to start that at 0. Hang tight, let me think about this. Okay, so I took a minute or two there and redid this, how this should actually be done now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a for I loop. I changed it from a for each loop. So I'm still going to use my variable index. This is going to represent the index that this particular band is in the list. And so I'm going to loop through my bands, and I'm going to do bands.get position I, and I'm going to check its ID against the ID that came in. And if that's a match, then the index is equal to I, and I can break out of this. So down here, my check is if the index is not -1, that means I found it. I've got a valid index, and I can use the remove operation, providing it the index. And so it will have been deleted, and I can then return out my is deleted value. So cross your fingers. This should all be good. The delete, the edit, as well as the add. I guess we'll find out when we actually run it. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is move to the details fragment file. So a couple things that we're going to do in here is, first thing we're going to do is add an interface. I just called it band listener, and what I want it to do is I want it to handle if something's edited. So this is the details fragment right here. And so I have an edit operation and a delete operation. So I'm going to provide a interface that's going to be listening and responding to if something was edited and then if something was deleted. And so my edited method works like this. We always provide it the original one plus the one that's been updated. And then for deleted, I'm going to pass back to it the one that was deleted. So you can see that I have my listener. It's got these two methods that are in it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list of potential listeners. And so you can see I have and it's static. So a list of these types. And then if you scroll down, I have a way to register the listener. So this is a static method that anybody can access. So they can register themselves if they've implemented this interface. So they get added to the list. And there's also a way for them to remove themselves if they so choose. Again, they can just simply remove themselves from the list. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here to the on create view and fragment details. Remember, we changed it a little bit. We added the edit and the delete methods. So what we're going to do is we're going to go get our edit button from the view, and then I'm going to add its on click listener. So let's see if I can get all of this visible here. So for the on click edit button handler, what I'm going to do is create a alert dialog that's going to contain the ability to change its details. So if I hit the edit button right here, you can see that I have the edit band details. It's got the name of the band and it has the description that I can change right there with a cancel and an OK button. So we've done this a couple times by now, so I am going to create a builder. I'm going to set its title, and then I'm going to get the edit view, the band details XML file. Again, we added that. Maybe we didn't talk about that earlier. So the band details originally had, so it's got a text box for the name, has a text box for the description. I think I forgot to mention those earlier. So we have a text box for the name, text box for the description, and then some labels to put name and description right there. So when I do click this edit button, this is what I'm seeing right here. I'm getting the name, that label, the text box, right there it is, the description, and then the text box for that as well. So we're going to inflate that view. We're going to set the alert dialogs view to it, and then I'm going to get my description text box. I'll set its name to the band that we have available. So remember, this has a band field right here. It is. So we'll set the description, we'll set the name, and then we'll set the action for the positive button, which is going to be the OK button right here. And what I want it to do is I want to get the name that's entered, the description that's entered, and then I'm going to create a new band with that information. And I'm going to get the current band's ID with the new name and description. And I'm going to call my database method edit band. I'll provide it the current ID and then the one that has been edited. So if that comes back as false, that means there was an error edited in the band, so we'll display an error message to them. Otherwise, we have a success. And what we're going to do is we're going to loop through our listeners. So this is a nice Java stream method here. We can loop through our listeners, and then we can call each one's handle edited callback. So I'll provide it the original band, and then this is the edited one. And then since this has a band reference, I'm going to update that band reference right here to the one that has been edited. And then really simple here, if we have a cancel operation right there, so the cancel it's going to close out this window. Continuing on, we have a delete button. So if I go back here, so if I have a delete, what we're going to do is get that from the view, set its on click listener, and again, I have a Boolean that gets returned. I can see right here it returns true if it's deleted, false if there's an error. So I'm going to take the current band's ID, pass it to delete band, and if it's not deleted, then we get an error message. Otherwise, again, we go to our callbacks and we pass it the band that was deleted. And then, oh, by the way, this right here, since we just deleted this band, we go ahead and we do an on back pressed. So that's the equivalent of pushing the back button, and we go back to our original screen here. So there's no reason to stay on this screen. If we've deleted, we should just go ahead and go back to the previous screen. So cross your fingers. Let's see if this actually works. So if I edit this and put Nirvana 2 and click OK, looks like I need to update this this screen here, but if I go back, I should have received my callback and this has been updated. So let's update this right in here. So I need to find my description and my name, and I need to update those as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So dot set text, the name, so that's the name of the band. And then we also have the text description. So we're going to set its text to the, I don't want, I guess I can do mband here. It doesn't matter. I can use edited or mband because they are the same thing at this point. But I'll do edited. I think that's a little bit more clean. And we've got the get description. So cross your fingers. Let's rerun this. And so not only should I see the update on my main screen here, but I should also see it. Oh, by the way, let's go fix poison here. So we can go fix that. So we'll edit this, and hopefully you were all screaming the other day that that's spelled with an O. And so we'll fix all that. So that's with an O. Cross your fingers. I click OK. And yes, that fixed. And why did that not fix? Edit. That should have been fixed. Let's go see what's going on there. Text description. I've got txt name, txt description, name text view. Hang tight, I'll be back. Oh, I was looking at the wrong thing. I need to come up here and I need this description text view. This is the one that's actually displaying on the details fragment. So let's go grab that and we set its text view. So now cross your fingers, we'll rerun this. And again, these are all using the hard-coded in strings, but let's go ahead and edit this. So this is going to be with an O. This is going to be with an O. We click OK. And so yes, now those are correct. If we go back, you can see that it is now correct. Let's say that we are no longer Poison fans. So let's see if our delete code works. So if I hit delete, I go back and I must not have my callback implemented for delete. So we'll have to see what's going on with it. I think it's an issue with our get bans and bans. So we'll have to double check and make sure that delete works here in a little bit. Okay, last thing we want to do is go to the list fragment. And we have quite a bit that we need to implement in here. So first thing is that we're going to implement the band listener that we declared in the details fragment. So when I do that, it's going to ask me, it's going to tell me that I need to implement the methods. So I'm going to scroll down, and you can see that I've implemented the handled, edited, handled, deleted methods. And let me just cut these out for now. Android Studio will tell me, hey, you're missing those methods that are required. So I'm going to go ahead and implement those methods. Click OK. And it put them up here at the top. I'm just going to go ahead and repaste over what I had there. And so handled, edited, I've got the handler for it. Handled, deleted, I've got the handler for that. We'll talk about how those are implemented here in a second. Next thing is I'm going to add a constructor to this list fragment. Originally, it had a default constructor, which means this was not explicitly stated. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a constructor for this list fragment, and I'm going to register myself with the details fragment listeners. So I have registered myself so I can then listen, and I'll get these callbacks handled back to me as they happen. Next thing I'm going to do is there is an adapter in this class. Okay, remember we hooked up a holder and adapter for our recycler view. So I'm going to have a reference to the adapter. And then if you scroll down in the onCreate view, we originally had just, it would have been band adapter equals this. So now I'm going to strip out the band adapter. I'm going to new it up right here, because I want to be able to reference my adapter outside of that onCreate view method. So in handle edited, we're going to add a method to edit a band to the adapter, as well as in the handle deleted. We want to be able to delete a band in there. Okay, next thing that we have in here is onCreate view. So let me get this up and running. So in onCreate view here, so when this list fragment appears, we have a floating action button now. So let's go ahead and get that floating action button. Right there it is. And then we're going to set its on click listener so that when I click this, what I want to do is be able to add a new band. And much of this code right here is actually copied from the details fragment where we have the edit code. It's the exact same code. We're going to create an alert dialog. It's going to have a title of add band. In fact, let's just go ahead and get that popped up here so you can see it. And so it has its name, has a description. They're not filled in because we're going to fill those in ourselves. We have an OK and a cancel button just like we had before. Except this time what we're going to do is we're going to get the name, get the description, create a band, and then we're going to add that band. Remember, it gives us a result, and we know that in here, add band returns -1 if it did not add it. So if we go back to the band database, -1 is the signifier that it is not valid. So we should probably put some JavaDoc in there stating that. Adds a band to the database, the band to add, and this returns the ID of the band, or -1 if it was not added. And so it wouldn't be added if it's a duplicate. So that's our flag to know that something bad happened. So I can check it again, check if it's -1, and I can say that band name already exists. Otherwise, we're going to add the band to our adapter for the recycler view. Scrolling down here, this button click listener, we can actually get rid of this. I think I had this left over from before. We don't need any of this code here because we actually hook it up in our band holder right here in the on click. It's got all that hooked up right there. All right, so let's take a look at the band adapter. Couple things that I'm going to change in it. First off is the constructor originally had the list of bands passed, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the database's get instance get bands method call down here. So I'm going to delete out the list of bands that was passed, which means I come back up here, and when I create my new band adapter, we don't pass in anything there. and come back down here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some methods to add, edit, and delete bands. Again, this is from our recycler view. So add band works like this. We're going to add a band. We're going to add it to the list. And then we're going to notify item inserted, and we're going to put it at the very end of the list. So we'll know the band's size, that list, and we can put it in the last position. So this will then update this recycler view for us. Edit band works like this. We give it the original and the updated. We find the index of the original one. This is where we need the equals method implemented. And then I'm going to add in that spot the updated band, and then I'm going to remove out the original from the list, and then I'm going to notify that the item's been changed in that particular index. So again, that'll update this recycler view. And then for delete band, we are going to get the index of the current band that was deleted. We're going to remove it from this list, and then we're going to notify item removed. So cross your fingers, some of this is going to work, but again, I told you there's a bug or two back in the band database. So watch this. Let's add a band. So we will add in, let's add in, we'll add in Guns and Roses, heavy metal band from 1980s. We'll click OK. And so you can see that we added it, but unfortunately got added twice. So we have a bug here, and this is a pretty difficult bug to track down. It goes all the way back to the band database. When I told you that we have a bug over here, what we have is a reference to this list, not only in the band database, but also in the list fragment. So I want to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in here. In fact, I'm going to do it, yeah, I can leave it there. You know what, let me do it in here. I'm going to put a breakpoint in here in the band adapters constructor, and then I'm going to also put it in right here. So let's debug this. And I want to see, so let me do a step over. Okay, so bands, what I want you to see is this right here. This is a unique identifier for this variable bands. And I can see that it's 22673. So in the bands database, this is 22673. And here, it's also going to be 22673 when I step over it. So I have a reference to the exact same thing. So I'm going to let this continue. So when I come in here and add, so it doesn't matter what I'm going to put in here. I'm just going to put some stuff so I can move on. So I'm going to click OK. And let me do this band database. This is going to go through my add band method right here. And in the list fragment, it's going to go through here as well. So let's click OK. So first thing it does is it goes to the database's add band method. It's going to add it here. So if I scroll down to right here, let's continue. This button continues. So bands 22673, it's size 14. I'm going to add the next band to it. Step over. So now I have 15 bands in there. And then take a look here. This has 15 bands in it already. It's the same reference. And now when I step over, I've got 16 in there. I just added the same band twice because I have the same reference to this object. So let's fix that. So this fix is really simple. Anytime I'm going to return something, I'm going to return a deep copy. So what that means is I'm going to create a list of type band. I'm going to call it copy. I'm going to do this explicitly. I'm going to loop through the bands list inside this database, and I'm going to do copy.add new band B. So I am looping through the bands in this database class. I'm going to create a new reference every single time. That is that deep copy constructor. And then instead of returning bands, I'm going to return this copy. So we've fixed the bug, we squashed it. I'm gonna do the same thing down here where I do a get band. I don't want to just simply return the same reference. I want to return a brand new reference. So we're gonna return a new band, not just a copy. So this is something that you need to understand in object-oriented programming. We were returning the same reference to things, which is going to be bad, bad, bad. So cross your fingers. Now when I do my add method, so let's do an add. So we'll add Guns and Roses 1980s hairband. I click OK. And so now I only have that one reference. We can edit it up. So cross your fingers. So let's make that name fixed. So Guns and Roses. And if I go back, so there it is. It's all good. Again, we're going to try our delete. So let's delete. And so you can see that it is deleting everything properly. So lots and lots and lots of content in here that you need to really go through. So you should be able to use this as a template as far as how to take a list view, potentially use it to visualize the individual item, be able to edit it and delete it, and then also have the ability to add new items to this. Next recording, what we're going to do is we're going to take this band database, which is using just hard-coded strings. Remember, this is our hard-coded strings right here. And what we'll do is we'll actually connect this with an SQLite database. So we'll revisit that with an SQLite database.